But it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute today. I love your story.
You too, and thank you. I am so glad to be here.
Me too. So let's begin our journey into your work by
Yeah.
asking you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic just absolutely changed everything.
Yes.
How did you make it through the pandemic of 2020, and how has it radiated into your world in 2025?
During the pandemic, my dad had already died. My mom had dementia. I um and we siblings told her about the pandemic, but she really only understood it as just a bad case of flu. Um, we didn't tell her that it felt as if the world was falling apart, but we wanted so much to be able to protect her from any infection that we would come to visit her and sit on the other side of a window in order and talk with her. Um, we couldn't even go in and hug her, and she
Oh,
didn't understand that. That was painful.
yeah.
Um, I was I was working with clients during that time, and they were so happy to be out in the fresh air because my therapy involves working with horses, bringing horses into the sessions. Um, and these kids who had been cooped up at home, isolated from their peers, were just so happy to be outside and riding and talking to somebody. But we had to take precautions even then. I had to wear a mask when I was adjusting the girth or adjusting stirrups. But at least those kids had a better situation than the kids who didn't have sessions like this. We got through it.
So let me ask you this. Before we get into the book, I want to know this. If we were to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day and they wanted to get a handle on your career and they
Yes,
were like, what do you do for a living? How would
yes.
you answer them?
Right now, I'm a writer,
Yeah.
but I also to writing as a mental health therapist and as somebody who absolutely has adored interior design since I was a child. But before that, I was a lawyer. And before that, I worked in the book publishing industry.
Oh,
Um, so I would say I'm in this wonderful situation now where I can take everything that life has given me and mix it up in a big bowl with a huge spoon and use it to create writing that I hope people appreciate and that enriches their lives.
so take me back to your childhood. Where were you born and raised? What were these foundational elements of law, design, words, mental health? How did all of these become a part of your world?
Well, as a child, I love to create. I love to write. My sister and I shared a bedroom, and my sister's interests were very different from mine, and we'd squabble just like sisters do. She was 2 years younger. One day, our mom brought home a privacy screen from the thrift shop, and it was genius because we used it to divide our rooms into half, and now I had a space of my own, which I set about decorating and used my new space to write and make up stories. And I started writing my first book about a girl who was shipwrecked on an island and survives by making friends with the animals. But that was the beginning of my passion for interior design. But I also read a lot. So after college, I went into the book publishing world, um, and um, and eventually into advertising, which is very related. And eventually, I went to law school. It, practiced that for several years, but was really struck by the need of many of my pro bono clients for um, some kind of understanding of how they could manage their lives to prevent some of the problems from occurring in the first place. And really thought that because of the limited number of resources available to help them with their legal problems on a pro bono basis, it might be more practical to become a therapist so that we could prevent multiple problems from occurring in the same lives. I thought that was more efficient.
Yeah.
That's how I became a therapist.
So talk to me a little bit about, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
Yes,
didn't mean to interrupt.
but I fundamentally have a very strong passion for nurturing human potential, helping support people so that they can use the talents that they have been given. And I really don't like to see potential wasted.
Yeah.
I also don't like to see people suffering needlessly. So that has been a big reason why I have loved being a therapist and then took those skills to write this book when I needed to write the book, um, because it might help people develop their own potential.
So the book is designed for your mind. Talk to me about it. What was the what impelled you to finally write it, and what are you ultimately hoping the reader gets from it?
My mom and dad um, had wonderful, full, rich lives. But at the end, during their final years, my dad had Parkinson's. My mom had been struggling to walk for a number of years, but eventually she developed dementia. And um, I lived next door and was the child, the adult child with most responsibility for their care. Um, After they passed away, my sister and I spent well over a year cleaning out the house, and we were co-executors of the will along with our brothers who lived out of state. And I was a little drained by the end of it, and I wanted to renovate the house that I inherited from my parents in a way that helped me recharge and go on with my life. So I decided to use my training as a mental health therapist, and my lifelong passion for interior design to renovate the house in ways that help me recharge. Midway through that process, though, it occurred to me to write a book about it. And luckily, I've been taking so many pictures of the rooms and the exterior of the house in order to upload them on the Benjamin Moore website to choose paint colors that I had the before pictures already, and I could use them in the book. And so I just pursued this whole project room by room, um, using what I knew about color and texture and light to lift myself up and then capture that as I wrote the book.
So talk to me about heroes. Who have been inspirational forces that have allowed you to navigate to this point, to evolve to this point, and given you inspiration?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Names will come to me, but they would tend to be people who find constructive ways to address reality and accept it, and and use reality, even if it's not perfect, as a springboard for inspiration and creativity. Those are people who are truly, in my opinion, truly resilient. It's a way of looking at reality and not denying it, not steering away from it, but accepting it in its imperfections and and finding some way to make good come out of it. Um, but names are escaping me.
No, you did.
They may come to me.
Yeah, no, you did a great description there. So let me ask you this. The one thing about everything that you've done in your life is you've taken on some pretty high profile, stressful situations. What is the biggest risk that you've taken in your life up to this point?
Oh, leaving the law to become a therapist was a risk. That meant going to grad school, um, 30 years, when I was 30 years older than my classmates, taking the required statistics course when I hadn't taken a math course since algebra in high school. I had no natural affinity for math. Um, so risking failure, um, and then realizing that for all the conventional wisdom that we lose our ability to absorb new information and process information as we get older, and I must be way beyond my prime, there um, there are strengths that we have as we're older that are actually very useful in an academic setting, um, and that uh, can be used to offset the supposed detriments. And specifically, the notion is that as we're get older, there are two types of intelligence, under this theory: fluid intelligence, which is the ability to absorb new information, process it, and crystallized intelligence, which is the product of our learned experience and the wisdom that we hold as a result of processing that learned experience. Supposedly, as you get older, your fluid intelligence capacity dissipates, and I mean, technically, I shouldn't have been able to go into grad school um, at my age and learn all these new things. It's certainly not statistics, with no aptitude in that area. But what I found was that the crystallized intelligence was the most important, and that somehow um, the Chris that the I had templates. If this makes any sense, and tell me if this isn't making sense. Templates in my brain that allowed me to transfer onto this new thing, and learn it, because now because I developed over the years a way of structuring new information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly does.
Um, so what should have been a huge risk of falling on my face and humiliation ended up teaching me to question conventional wisdom and the ageism that is so pervasive in our culture, and second guess it. Because if you lived long enough, you can you probably have some capacity to develop a workaround for any situation, even if it's brand new to you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. How have you managed to find a work-life balance in your career? What's your philosophy on that to take care of yourself, your family, and do the best job you can? How does that work for you?
Um, Absolutely critical now to take care of myself, and I really wish I'd understood that when I was taking care of my parents. Um, I thought I understood it, but a real life problem is that if if you if unless you prevent yourself from being socially isolated, unless you make sure that you get exercise and good nutrition and aren't falling into bad habits, and that you're getting enough sleep, you can slide into um, a state of mind that's not exactly creative and resourceful. So solutions are hard to come by. If I had prevented that from happening, however I did it, I would have known some of the things that are almost second nature to me today, long past that situation. And I would have figured out how to get, say, fit in a walk and listen to a book at the same time on Spotify, for example. So I'd be getting my regular exercise and my intellectual stimulation at the same time. That makes very good use of whatever limited time is available. Um, but I didn't really understand some of those things. And now, um, what I hope people take from the book, one of the things I hope people take from the book is the knowledge that there are ways to keep themselves from sliding into that circumstance and ways to make good use of their time so that they can address those needs and understand that those needs are non-negotiable. Once you do that, once you take care of yourself, the work-life balance is not difficult to establish. Um, um, but you just have to primarily understand that there are certain things that you need that cannot be compromised.
So let me ask you this. If you were to have a dream tonight, you ran into
Yeah,
the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version, ready to charge into the world, a piece
yeah,
of advice based
yeah,
on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained,
yeah.
what advice would you impart on that young version?
Oh, oh. I was telling my niece, I was discussing this with my niece a couple of days ago. Um, Opportunities, one of the mistakes I made when I was 18 was to think that opportunities just grew on trees. And if you didn't take advantage of one, several more would be just coming down the road. And I didn't treat them with the respect that they deserved.
Yeah.
Now I understand that opportunities are gifts. If something is some serendipitous happening presents an opportunity to you, you take it, you seize it, and make yourself ready for it because you may not have an opportunity to do it badly. So stay ready for your opportunities, recognize them when they come along, and seize them and do your very best with them. But if you don't see opportunities, use your creativity to examine the reality that you have and the things that you can't change. Don't complain about them. Just if you can't change something, figure out what you can do about it. And you might find that you can use that reality as a springboard to create opportunities for yourself.
So of everything that you've done in your life, accomplished, evolved to, what are you the proudest of?
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question?
Of everything that you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Probably surviving in a way that made me better. Um, this is a good question.
Yeah.
I have a little personal principle that I don't articulate. Um, no matter what bad happens, no matter what happens to me, for years and years, my personal commitment is to turn it to my advantage, no matter how bad it is. That's my thing. Um, and it's a way of thumbing my nose at things that I don't like. But that stimulates a lot of creativity. I think that's what I'm most proud of.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends,
Yep.
clients, everybody that reads your book, everybody that knows you, but you run the show.
Yeah.
What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Somebody who cares passionately about supporting other people and helping them to reach their potential. Um, Somebody who respects the gift of life and doesn't expect it to be perfect. So,
So what's the best thing about living in Pittsburgh?
the pragmatism. I, I really enjoy the practical, no nonsense ethos of this culture. I am a transplant, and uh, it doesn't matter what economic or educational background one um, has. In this area, um, people like to solve problems and they don't have a lot of tolerance for um, superficiality. And I like that.
That's great. So if anyone wants to pick up a copy of your book, Designed for Your Mind, reach out, any of the other good business in your world, where's the best place to go?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble online, bookshop.org, and limited edition copies are available exclusively on my website.
Okay.
Would you like my website address?
Please. Yeah.
www.anniegustdesignforyourmind.com.
Okay. I will be sure to put that in the show notes. This has been wonderful, Andy. Thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely. Looking to get new clients to your business through cold calling or email marketing? At Agency Y, they envision a world in which small and big companies have equal chances to win new customers in the market. Their purpose is to bring parity and reduce the gap between large and small firms with the help of their cold calling and cold email marketing services. Use the code Joe Dimino 10 at www.agencyyyy.org/coldcallingjoe.php or www.agencyyyy.org/emailmarketingjoe.php to get 10% off your first order. This is Joe Dimino of Neon Jazz and Famous Interviews, and I stand behind Agency Y to meet your business dreams.